This is Dr. Garrett Smith back for another Love Your Liver live stream. If I seem a little tired today, it's because I got to have full duty of taking care of all of my family for multiple generations and waking up at night to take care of my lovely mother and make sure she was all okay and all that fun stuff. So yeah, in the real world, everybody doesn't look like Instagram influencers all the time, and people look tired sometimes. So, deal with it. Just want to say hi to all the haters and the infiltrators. Hello. Yeah, we've been noticing some interesting things happening in the background. So anyway, what are we going to talk about today? First, I have some testimonials to go over. So we're going to go over that today, and then we're going to go to the subscriber chat. So if you have questions, and this is a Q&A, so if you would like your questions to be in the queue, you need to post them in the chat. And then if you have a question you would really like to get to the top of the list, then you can do a super chat, which is a little donation to the channel, and that we do those first. And then once those are done, then we go back to the top of the chat to start, and we work our way down. So it's kind of first come, first serve, and the super chats go first. So anyway, if any of you want any more information from me, it's all down in the text box below. You can find all my links. Other stuff I like, you can find us all over the internet, and we go from there. So let's go do testimonials. Okay. So we got 4 today. I'll try to go through these fairly quick, but I like to explain them as I need to. So the first one we have, now these testimonials are posted inside the Love Your Liver network. I do not give any names or identifying information in these testimonials, but if those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program, you can always find these inside there. So let's go. First testimonial, I had a consult with Nathan Weens, it's PA, he's a physician's assistant, at the end of March. He recommended upping my zinc. I did, and so far all of my gallbladder pain/attacks have stopped. So for those of you who don't know, I do my consults, and then Nathan Weens, he's a PA, I have personally trained him in doing the testing interpretation with the hair test and the blood tests, and he's less expensive than I am, and he's a very, very good option for people who can't work with me. If you work with him, you get access to the office hours, which includes my office hours. So you can ask me troubleshooting questions and follow-up stuff. There's Nathan's office hours that we run too. It's all included in the package, and 6 months of access. So Nathan's doing good work too. Testimonial number 2. I wanted to share my experience with low blood pressure. Mine has always been low, and at times scary low, even having POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia, that's fast heartbeat syndrome. For years, I took a lot of salt and did at least 1 LMNT packet a day, and my BP blood pressure stayed low but not extreme. Let me just say something here. LMNT, it's element, right? It is an electrolyte supplement. I personally think it's generally it's mostly salt, which is not hard to get. Like, you just salt your food more. There's a little bit of potassium in it. I mean, some, not a lot, but you could make something at home very easily with a couple of electrolyte powders and some micro teaspoon scoops, which we sell in our store. So anyway, my sodium level on labs was always at the very low end of normal, and it never made sense, especially since I take hydrocortisone for adrenal function. As I tell people about hair testing, for those of you who have worked in the hair mineral analysis world with practitioners, or you're practitioners yourself, and people look at the sodium and potassium levels on hair tests and thinking that means something, it doesn't mean jack squat. If you are looking at hair tests, the greatest thing you will do for yourself is to completely ignore the sodium bar and number and the potassium bar and number on hair testing. It is the most controversial area of hair testing in terms of people will say, did they use solvents on the hair to clean it or not? And everybody makes a big deal out of it. And the easiest thing I'm going to tell you, just like this woman saying her sodium was always at the very low end of normal, yet she was still salting her food. Your body has massive amounts of control over your sodium and potassium levels when it's healthy. When you're not healthy, your body loses control of your sodium and potassium levels. It's a toxicity and deficiency problem. You can medicate it with more sodium or more potassium, and I'm encouraging you to do that as you need to, as long as you are realizing that the deeper issue is the toxicities and deficiencies. Okay? So let's go. I've been doing this program for about 8 months now, and my sodium is finally in the middle range on my labs from a month ago. I believe I have been copper toxic with deficiency symptoms at time to add to the party, and I believe she means deficiencies of other things. And I never took a substantial amount of zinc before. Now I take a lot and extra when I'm in a dump, a bile dump, and I think that that is the thing that has helped my electrolyte balance the most. I'm sure there are many factors, but some solo research and a strong intuitive sense tell me that's the game changer. So, what will copper toxicity cause? Potassium deficiency. You guys should go, Joe, you may want to grab my adrenal episode, my adrenal live stream episode, post that in the chat. Folks, your adrenal fatigue problems, your hypothyroid problems, all these glandular problems, hormonal problems are toxicities and deficiencies. Every single time. So, there we go. Let's go back here. Testimonial 3. This is from Mr. Williford. I know he doesn't mind me saying his name because he's all over Twitter talking about us, and he just had some stuff to add. Just wanted to sound off about how great I feel right now. I've been quote dieting by just eating a regular meal 3 times a day with no snacks, and I've lost about 11 pounds in the past 2 months and really leaning out. Normally in the past, I would have no energy from cutting back on calories and being so active, but it's totally different now. Sure, I don't get the same pump as when I'm really eating hard to bulk, but I keep progressing regardless. I always think before I do an exercise that the weight may be too much, but I always seem to be able to complete the set and subsequent increase in weight. Also, my joints all over just feel lubricated. I have 0 aches and pains and have played lots of golf and continued my regular workouts. I did take 3 weeks off from deadlifting for a golf tournament, but tonight, even after 3 weeks off, I was able to increase my overall volume from the last workout over 3 weeks ago without straining. And that's with 335-pound deadlifts, by the way. Okay. At 47, almost 48 years old, I couldn't be any happier right now with where I'm at after almost 5 years on the diet. Actually, Weldon has been working with me for he's been known about my stuff, and I think we've been doing stuff together for something like a total of 13 years. Okay, but the last 5 years when we started doing the detox, the vitamin A detox, was when things really, really started to change. And that's the same with me too. I did adjust for the summer heat a few weeks ago when I realized I was pushing too hard by cutting my zinc in half from 60 milligrams back to 30 milligrams and also cut my niacin in half from 200 milligrams to 100 milligrams per day. I do think that's one reason I just feel so good right now is that I'm not pushing as hard as I was. The only recent thing that popped up, and I believe some have also experienced this, is by losing the 11 pounds of fat. I think I released some stored toxins in that fat and had 3 very small bumps on my face that I haven't had in a very long time. Totally happens. I think it's a combination of fat loss and that bad bile dump spell after the golf tournament with 3 days in 90-degree heat with 100% humidity. If you are early in your journey, I encourage you to keep at it and remain as strict as possible. Within 3 to 4 years, you will feel like a new person, most likely. So yeah, those of you who are here who are familiar with toxic bile theory and the agitators and all that stuff, you'll recognize what he's going through. You've probably done it yourself. He's doing the right things. He's, cutting things down when it's time and just watching the results come in. And the 4th testimonial. Just noticed something positive. I came in from working the garden and noticed my lower back / sacroiliac joint isn't pinching like it has been in the past. Forever. It's tired, but not pinching like usual. I was squatting, bending on my knees, pulling weeds, digging. Anyway, a definite win today. Been doing Love Your Liver for almost 2 years. I would say I've been seeing slow improvements in just the last 3 weeks. Not sure what has happened. Added thiamine and increased niacin to 200 milligrams, but I'll take it. I've also had a weird cold, which we know is a bile dump, which started about 10 days ago. I'm assuming that's a detox of some kind, but I'll deal with a cold if my back/sacroiliac joint can feel this good. Okay, hold on 1 second. I have to, the kids are home for summer and I have to deal with something real quick. Live show, right? Okay, we're back. So that's what we got for testimonials. So we can put those down and let's get into the questions. Like I said, those are all these. We're getting weekly. So for those of you out there who are in the Love Your Liver program, if you would like your testimonial read here, make sure to post it. Tag Sarah G in there so she makes sure to see it. And I'm happy to read it here. Like I said, I don't give the identifying information. People can find it in the Love Your Liver program, but I'm not going to say it out here. So let's get into the questions. Sarah, did you send me something from Matei in my email? I'm trying to see if something was sent to me. Sarah may have had something else. Anyway, okay. Okay, Matei is asking, well, we have this question from Matei. It is the first question in the list. He's asking, does molybdenum transport and bind copper out without displacing it in the body like zinc does? So we have similar effects. So let me go over a little bit about the copper antagonists, zinc and molybdenum. So copper antagonists means they work against copper, or they displace it from the liver. They kick it out of the liver so then the body can get rid of it, hopefully in the bile. Molybdenum, the thing we must remember first of all is zinc is typically dosed in milligrams. So 1 milligram is 1,000 micrograms. And molybdenum and selenium, which are both copper antagonists, are dosed in micrograms. So right there, immediately off the bat, we're looking at, like a 30 milligram zinc pill is quite common. Well, that's 30,000 micrograms of copper antagonist. Molybdenum, a common dose, will be 150 micrograms. So we're looking at 30,000 micrograms of a copper antagonist versus 150 micrograms. So right there, just the dosing in terms of just the milligrams or microgram amounts is massively different. And this is why when we talk about, stirring up copper, the first thing we always look at is zinc, because it's just the big gun. It's just big. So there's that. Some people stir up copper. They have, they notice that zinc really stirs up copper for them, and molybdenum's not a problem. And some people notice that molybdenum really stirs up copper for them, and zinc doesn't. So this is why in the program, this can very much be summarized as, Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that. Go do the next thing. That's why we have the order of adding stuff in the program, which is where I tell you, start here and go down the list in this order. And then if you get to the end, a really good thing to do would be go back up to the start and see if you've addressed all these things. Because let's say somebody goes down and they're like, oof, zinc kicks my butt with copper. Oh, I'm dumping copper. I don't feel good. I got to take low doses. Or let's say you can't even take it. Okay. That's legit. You don't take it if you can't take it. So then you go down the list, and let's say you do what I suggest, which is you come back up to the top and you start and you go down again, and then you get to zinc and you're like, oh, wait, Now I'll try zinc again. And you try it, and then you're okay with some dose, maybe more than you were taking before, or maybe you're okay with it now, taking some at all. And this is why it's like we work on these things and we go through the order. I mean, it's not written in stone that you have to go in that order at all. But I get a lot of questions where people go, well, what do I start with? And what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? So I made the order of adding stuff. Does that mean it has to be followed to the letter? No. And I say that. So generally, copper antagonists are going to be assumed to help facilitate the removal of the thing it's antagonizing out of the body through the bile. And generally, the idea here is that your liver is going to have stuff in it. It can have lots of copper and lots of vitamin A, or it could have more things like zinc and molybdenum. And when you put more of these things in, it kicks more of the others out. It generally displaces them. But again, molybdenum is orders of magnitude less in terms of microgram dosing than zinc. So that's the story on that. I mean, you need zinc to run alcohol dehydrogenase, which is part of the enzyme system. You need molybdenum to run ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase, and also aldehyde oxidase. So they both help run, getting rid of the whole detox system. You need them. Molybdenum's involved in multiple detox and was it 4 or 5 specific ones? And then zinc is involved in what was the last count? Either 200 or 400 enzyme processes in the body. So they're both very, very important, and we need both of them. And one of the things, that I try to stay away from is where people go, well, which one is better? And I go, that's which part of your car, in terms of if they're required to drive, which part of your car is better? If you miss either one of them, the car doesn't work right. So why are we doing that? Why do people in health do that? Which one's better? Let's do optimal. And I'm like, the only reason people would talk about optimal is when they're talking about things that are not essential, because essential, you need it to live, right? You're not in the optimal. Optimal is with BS supplements for most part. And then you're forcing the system to do something, which isn't optimal, right? So let's get into the next one. Okay, Cass asks, since it's getting warm out and the pool is a fun activity to do in the summer, what do you recommend doing to counteract the excess chlorine that our bodies will be absorbing? Well, I generally don't suggest high doses of iodine. I've been over that before. I don't know. I mean, I don't have stuff to purposely counteract chlorine. I mean, I don't know. What you're purposely doing is going in a chlorine pool. I mean, that's what you're purposely doing. I'm not totally against chlorine compounds, but I don't discuss that on YouTube because I'm smart and I don't need to make myself a target. I do discuss those topics in the Love Your Liver program. But generally, I mean, the body does have systems to deal with, chlorine and chloride. It has systems to deal with this. I don't have specifics. Generally, I would try to get your pool on a different system, like maybe, saltwater pools or something like that. Generally, one of the things I may do is if I ever do something small, there is something called let me just go by the May Snow 2. which is also known as pool shock. I may use that to use in like a small pool, or if I end up getting like an ice bath kind of thing, because I'm finding, especially in the Tucson summer here, I'm kind of getting back into cold showers, and I kind of enjoy it. And I might do some cold water stuff again, because I like it, and there's that. So if I decide to do a more little permanent cold plunge thing, I may do the compound known as May Snow 2, which is, you can buy it as pool shock. So yeah, but I don't have a specific, if you're going to go in the pool, you're going to go in the pool. I mean, you're going to absorb whatever's in the pool. And I don't tend to try to, if you were to believe that what you're putting in there is toxic and you're absorbing it through your skin, then you kind of just do what we normally do and accept that you're choosing to expose yourself to that. But chlorine does increase the speed of oxidation. I'm not saying to purposely go and do it a ton, but yeah, the worst thing people put in pools is like the copper sulfate antifungal stuff. That's where things get really nasty. So, but that's what I got. Okay, so I posted about there, if you're gonna do Kelsey's store, which, oh wait, I didn't do this. I didn't start my my flush yet. So yeah, this is Kelsey's Naya soda. Today I'm doing the regular version, the one without, not Naya soda black. I'm doing just regular Naya soda. But if you're going there in the live chat, what you want to do, this helps Kelsey get a couple extra bucks, I think. You want to do Terranian, Terran, terraniantreasures.etsy.com. You need to enter it like that. If you want her to get some extra credit from Etsy. So that's like her, if you wanted to call it, that's Kelsey's own like affiliate link to get a little bonus. But yeah, bottoms up. I don't know if Kelsey will be joining us in the live chat today. But she might. So let's go find the next question. Telansia usnioides says, any recommendations for DVT? Yeah, avoid it at all possible. If at all possible. Don't get DVTs if you can avoid it. It was like the old what's the guy's name? The original paleo guy. The V-shaped guy, where somebody asked him, like, what's the best solution to lose excess body fat? And the guy said, well, don't get fat in the first place. And I thought that was hilarious, right? It's always easier to prevent something than it is to solve it. So anyway, but once a DVT has happened, I mean, then you're looking at generally, I mean, I'm not giving acute clot busting info here. That's not, these are acute things. Like, these are, by the time a DVT has happened, the system is not in good shape. There's a lot of problems that were not addressed over time. Acute medicine is not my area. Acute medicine is where poisons are used. That's like our whole, emergency care system, is where they use poisons to force your body to do something so that they can save your life, because they're shutting down whatever process in the body is causing it. So with, that's not a topic that I'm going to go into on a giant public forum like YouTube, because there's just too many angles to it. I don't know what the person's doing. I don't know how they got there. I don't know anything about this person. And in general, if we were trying to prevent DVTs from happening, or to prevent more DVTs from happening, we'd be doing the program. Because clotting stuff is very much related to the liver. The liver makes a bunch of your clotting proteins. So that's where we go. Okay. Cass says, I tried LMNT once because my mother-in-law bought some and it was disgusting. It was so salty I couldn't handle it. I mean, it's mainly salt with like it's like, what is it, 600 milligrams of sodium with 200 milligrams of potassium? If I was making something, I'd probably flip-flop those ratios. People are salting their food like crazy these days. You buy any kind of pre-made food, it's got tons of salt in it. You go to any restaurants, it's got tons of salt. Like nobody is salt deficient these days. Now, if you have a real health situation where you're having to pump a bunch of sodium into your system, like if you tend to have low blood pressure, again, the problem is the toxicities and the deficiencies that cause the low blood pressure, and the excess sodium that you're taking in to medicate it is a Band-Aid or crutch. It helps you to function, helps you to feel better, but it's not fixing the problem. And if we fix the problem, then you won't have to salt like crazy all the time for the rest of your life. And maybe we could even get you off the meds that might be going along with this whole thing. So yeah. Okay. Vasil said pools are nasty. Old people pee in them. Pretty much everybody pees in the pool, whether they admit it or not. So, and everybody can deny it, but you know, are you going to trust other people out there these days? It is kind of like a giant toilet. Cass says, do you have any opinions on strep in the blood / rheumatic fever? Rheumatic fever, rheumatism, rheumatoid arthritis is toxicity. Strep, MRSA actually makes carotenoids. I'm sorry, that's staph. That's a staph. Sorry, that's Staph aureus. I got strep and staph confused there for a second. They're both S's. Sorry about that. But no, we things don't grow. If we're talking about anything, well, I'm not going to talk about viruses because they're just toxicity. That's just straight toxicity. Viruses are just busted up, broken proteins. Garbage. Bacteria, fungus, yeast only grow where the environment supports them to grow. We can say it's terrain theory in a way, but I do still believe, like, as an example, why do showers, public showers spread athlete's foot? Because a seed is there. And if the seed gets on you and your terrain can help it grow, it gives it what it needs to grow. The garden is fertile for that thing to grow. It does. I'm not totally like the idea that things aren't out there that could spread. I don't totally believe in that. Like fungal issues are one example. Parasite issues are one example. They only grow, and your gut biome. I mean, do people, if you're like a terrain theory absolutist, do you just think the gut biome is made up? Or are those bacteria real and the other bacteria aren't? Could both germ theory, not virus theory, if you want to say germ theory, like bacteria and fungus and yeast and parasites, something else coming on to us, be real? And these things only get a foothold if the environment, the garden, is suitable for them to grow. Can some things appear in us, certain pathogens, because if pleomorphic theory has any validity to it at all, could they arise from within us? I'm open to that concept. What's the solution to all of it? Fixing the toxicities, fixing the deficiencies. It's always the same solution. Then I don't have to worry about germ theory versus terrain theory. That's why I don't spend time on social media arguing with people about viruses. I just go, it's toxicity. Okay, done. Can we spread toxicity? Sure. Why not? Could toxicity be EMF affecting stuff in us? Sure. Why not? That's a toxicity. Can we spread trauma? Yeah. Have I shown in one of the early live streams, I go over how emotional trauma as a child can end up with more liver disease as you get older. It's all connected. Like, just because I don't spend a lot of time on these things doesn't mean they're not addressed. Now, I will say this. I've been getting into this more lately. If you've got mental and emotional issues, stuff going on, like we all do from our past, and you don't ever deal with it, that part of you will never get fixed. And more pills and tightening up your diet may improve the situation, but it's not going to make that go away. So if you are completely unwilling to work on whatever happened in your past, mentally, emotionally, your subconscious, that stuff, you may be stuck. And this is something I'm going to have to address in the program. Actually, I was just going over it today. I saw somebody in the program said that their gray hairs had increased in the 3 years since they've been on the program. Okay. So I went and I found the research showing that stress can increase your hair graying. You guys have heard the story of how somebody could be like basically scared to death and their hair could turn gray overnight. Well, did they get a toxicity or a deficiency overnight, or was it just stress? Could it have been a massive bile dump coming out and then affecting their hair? Sure, why not? But was it still stress? That's what the research, we know stress is an agitator. Okay. So let's say somebody's doing the program. They say they're, first of all, people can say they're doing a program. As we all know, that doesn't mean that everybody out there is doing what they say in public. Okay? Second, stress. It doesn't, like, I don't fix that. Most people, even including myself, most people live in denial of their actual stress levels. Most people live in denial. Some people just bathe in it, and that's where they live. They're like, I'm so stressed all the time, and they just live in it, and they almost make it worse for themselves. But how many people live in denial of it, and you're like, you need to deal with your stress, and they're like, no, I'm not. No, I'm fine. I'm not going to do it. Can you see my redness? I got the flesh going. So anyway, fixing toxicities and deficiencies doesn't fix everything. And I never claimed it did. And I'm working with the things that I am best at. And it fixes a lot of stuff. And I would dare say that as people get less toxic and less deficient, that they start to see their issues more. And then they can go and choose to start dealing with them in ways that they learn about or they know about. And usually after all that, kind of like a lot of exercise for people where they're in tons of pain, and exercise caused them more pain. As they get less toxic, they feel like exercising more, and then they go and they exercise more, and they can fix the pain. You see what I'm saying? But emotional, mental trauma, subconscious patterns, that stuff, that does have to be fixed too. So we can fix the chemistry, like the actual chemistry, but people still have to deal with what they've learned and what they've adapted to. And there's a saying of, you better be careful of what you practice, because if you practice the wrong thing, you may get really good at the wrong thing. Well, what are we practicing? Let's say we have a lot of emotion, a lot of toxicities and deficiencies in our brain. And we get, even though it's a chemical thing, we get better and better at being in that state, the thinking of toxicities and deficiencies. Does it make sense that, let's say you fix the toxicities and deficiencies, now you've gotten really, really good, in a bad way, at the wrong thought patterns? So then you have to work on the thought patterns or the subconscious stuff that became an issue. Like, think about it. How much would it mess somebody up to have a chronic disease for 20 or 30 years that almost like became a part of their personality? And then we start fixing their chemistry, but their personality adapted to that over 20 to 30 years. Like, are they gonna need to do some work to probably get out of those patterns that they have become extremely good at? Probably. I've done a bunch of detox. I did some subconscious work recently, and I had a bit of a bad habit of too many screens, and I got a great book on it. And I broke that habit within about 3 to 4 days with hardly any work. The book is called I Can't Believe How Easy This Is. And the author kind of hinted at dopamine withdrawal symptoms. Hinted at it. I had bad dopamine withdrawal symptoms. Bad. I knew it was a problem. And yeah, it was a rough weekend between all the stuff of me taking care of everybody and going through the dopamine withdrawal symptoms. Yeah, it was a tough weekend. But yeah, I Can't Believe How Easy This Is, by John David Haskins. Here, let me show it to you. I have it right here on my desk. This may be one of the most brilliant, short self-help books I've ever come across. Absolutely brilliant. I bought one for a good friend. I bought a copy of it for a good friend the other day. That's how much I like it. When I buy a book for somebody, it means, first of all, it means I really like them. Secondly, it means I really like the book. I don't know how many books I've ever even bought for people. So, yeah, Joe, there's not been any super chats, right? Okay. Danish. Thank you for the question. The question is, ghee, clarified butter, bad because it has yellow tint. I'm assuming cows put some beta carotene in it. Just saw your thread on yellow color, so reviewing everything yellow in your kitchen. Okay. Oh yeah, Gianni. I saw it. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to Gianni's question. So about ghee. Okay, first, this is going to be like, wow, I'm looking pretty pink right now. So that means I should drink more, right? Butter is yellow, light yellow. Butter is full of vitamin A. The best way to deliver vitamin A to the system is to have it in fat. What else is butter? Right? And then there's the casein proteins. Like when you melt butter and you clarify it to make ghee, you filter out the dairy proteins. Okay? Those dairy proteins, both whey and casein, are shown to contain vitamin A in their structure. They hold vitamin A inside of it. So this is part of where we get to see into the BS of the original and still ongoing vitamin A free animal diets that are where they don't give them vitamin A, and then they claim that the symptoms are vitamin A deficiency. So let me drink this and then we'll get into it. Okay. So when you make a ghee from butter, or for those of you who have bought butter from the store, first of all, ghee doesn't smell good to me. Ghee kind of turns my stomach to smell it, which probably some oxidation going on in there, which is not really what we want. Second, butter is like a light yellow, and ghee definitely turns a darker yellow. Well, what could be going on there? One of two things. One, the proteins, like when you melt butter and you see the little squiggly proteins floating in it, what color are they generally? They're whitish. Okay, so the butter had yellow in it, but it also had white in it, which makes it a lighter yellow. Ghee, you're taking out those proteins, which are white, and you're left with less white, which would make it look more yellow. Okay. Then we get into oxidizing. Retinol. So the degradation or the oxidation or the detoxification of vitamin A is an oxidative process. So oxidizing, heat, air, light. Well, what are we doing when we're making ghee? Heat and air and, well, it's in the light. So it's got all three of those. Okay. But mainly the heat. So you're heating it. Heating oxidizes things. The butter, the vitamin A in the butter goes from retinol possibly to retinaldehyde, then possibly to retinoic acid. Vitamin A, as it goes through those steps, retinol, retinaldehyde, retinoic acid, it actually becomes more damaging and more toxic. So, and then there's that smell. Wherever that smell came from, it's there. Butter doesn't smell, ghee smells. So, we got that. But generally, I mean, I make a small allowance for some butter in the Love Your Liver program. Other vitamin A guys say, no way. I make a small allowance for it for people. Here's why I do that. If some people said, if I could do this program if I could just have a little bit of butter, I'm like, I'd rather keep you on the program than you quit. Not everyone understands client management like I do, because a lot of people out there who are advising the vitamin A detox stuff in general, not my stuff necessarily, but their own stuff, don't work with that many people on a daily basis. And they haven't been working with people since 2006 like I have. So they don't understand client management and how you can give people a little breathing room and still get positive effects. It won't be as fast. But if we're talking about a marathon, not a sprint, and we're talking about years, giving people a little breathing room can keep them on it. And then over time, if they decide, look, I don't need this anymore, I don't want this anymore, then they get rid of it. Perfection is the enemy of good. Or we'll put it this way, good enough is good enough. You're never going to be optimized. You're never going to be perfect. Give up that idea. And the sooner you do, the sooner you can get better and have a happier life, because struggling for perfection is just miserable. Okay. But no, generally, if you are on if you wanted to be on a low vitamin A diet and avoid yellow things, butter and ghee have no place in that. And added fats to the diet, by definition, ghee is an added fat to the diet. Butter's an added fat to the diet. Those are not great for your liver in the first place. So if you were going to do anything like that, you absolutely minimize it. And yes, the yellow color does give it away. Absolutely. It is vitamin. Oh, so sorry, I was going to tie this to the animal foods. So when they make casein, vitamin A free casein, what they really mean is retinol free casein. Casein being the clumpy, chunky protein that's in milk, the stuff that like cottage cheese is made of. Okay, so when you think of chunks of cottage cheese, you're thinking of chunks of casein. Okay. So when they make this for the animal studies, they call it retinol free. What they do to the casein is they process it with, get this, heat and alcohol, ethanol. Which of those, so alcohol, retinol is an alcohol, ethanol is an alcohol. How does alcohol remove alcohol? And secondly, So, secondly, here's the big thing. Here's the first thing you must understand. The vitamin A free casein. Like if you were to look at casein powder you buy from the bodybuilding shops, it's white. If you look at cottage cheese, it's white. If you look at Greek yogurt, which is like casein galore, it's white. The animal protein that is the casein protein for the animal studies that is supposed to be vitamin A free is what color? It's yellowish. It's got a yellow tint to it. But they say there's no vitamin A in it. But they are measuring for retinol only. So what if the heat changed the retinol into retinaldehyde or retinoic acid so what if you've changed it from retinol into either retinaldehyde and or retinoic acid, and they don't measure for that? And then they say, there's no retinol in here. It's vitamin A free. And yet the vitamin A is all still there. It's just in different forms they didn't measure for, and it's in worse forms. So then we see that vitamin A toxicity symptoms are exactly the same as vitamin A deficiency symptoms from the animal studies. It makes absolutely no sense for toxicity symptoms to be exactly the same as deficiency symptoms. It's just toxicity. They just are telling you that there's no vitamin A in the stuff they gave the animals. Grant Genereux and another gentleman did animal experiments where they fed a gerbil or a hamster or both, or a mouse. They fed them for months and months, like 8 months, I think, a close to zero vitamin A diet. You can't have a zero vitamin A diet and eat whole foods. So it was a very close to zero vitamin A diet. The animals had no problems. Do you know that in science now? Go look up the replication crisis in science, where they're saying we can't reproduce these studies. Well, if they keep using the crap animal food, then they can keep reproducing that thing. But until what we want to do, what I'm working on, is test getting some of these these zero vitamin A animal casein proteins and measuring them for retinaldehyde and retinoic acid. And then we'll also measure the pork fat, the lard that they used in the studies. And we'll show that there is retinaldehyde and retinoic acid in the pork fat. And these were two of the things they gave the mice and rats in the original vitamin A deficiency studies. You ever notice how, let's say, with bacon, right? Bacon fat looks white, but then if, let's say, you cook it, it starts to look yellow. You ever notice that? So, let's keep going. Laura says, nobody pees in my pool. It's good to have fantasies. Okay, Johnny says, thanks for the super chat. He says, I gained a little weight on the niacin. I interpreted this as toxicity coming out of the liver that I wasn't able to expel. Is that correct? Better in fat? I don't quite understand the better in fat comment. Okay, so when people are doing the program properly, when they're doing the program, I'm not going to say properly, and they push things too hard, whether intentionally or not, most of the time it's an accident, they can start dumping too much bile and leaking too much bile into the system. What can the body do to store this toxicity that is now leaked into the bloodstream? Well, it can make body fat, because most of these are fat-soluble toxins. Right? Bile is basically fat soluble, right? It's supposed to help. Bile is supposed to help you absorb fat. So doesn't that mean bile gets absorbed with fat and is kind of fat soluble? Does that make sense? Right? So why can't we store bile acids in fat too? So if you're dumping too much bile, you may be leaking too much bile into your system. Then your body's making storage to do it. These toxins leaking into your system could also slow down your thyroid a little bit. That's what's slowing down your thyroid in the first place, folks. So if you made it worse, you can make it worse. Okay, this is not a game. You can mess this up, all of us. You can push too hard, or you could just do something like you start some nicotinic acid. Nicotinic acid, we've got the research showing it can increase, it speeds up ALDH. It's the gas to run ALDH. And when we do that, it also means you tend to increase your bile production and dumping. I just told you that if you do that too fast, you could start to store more body fat. Okay, so it all fits together. So if you wanted that effect to reduce, you would reduce the nicotinic acid dosing. You might, let's say, Gianni, you say, well, I feel better than before when I do this. But I got this symptom I don't like, and I got this other symptom that I do like. What do? We have sayings for all these things. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Are the benefits currently worth the negatives? If you say yes, I will tell you that those negatives should pass with time, as long as you don't keep increasing your dose. But I don't know how long it's going to take them to pass. So if you don't like them, then back off. Say, no, the juice is not worth the squeeze, and we're going to not squeeze so much. Or if you say, yeah, it's worth it, then I'm okay with however long this symptom lasts, then stick with it. But the symptom may last for 3 months, 6 months, a year. I don't know. Nobody knows how much toxicity you have stored in you and how long it's going to take to come out. So when people say, yeah, the juice is worth the squeeze, I go, I hope you can last. I hope you can last until it's gone, because nobody knows how long it's going to be there. So, he was asking a question. Is the toxicity better in the body fat than the toxicity in the liver? These are questions that it doesn't really matter, right? Because your body is going to do what it wants to do, what it decides is best in that situation at that moment. If we had to pick, okay, your body's going to have to move the toxicity from the body fat to the liver to be processed for it to ever leave. I've talked about this before, like people who are yellow from vitamin A toxicity or orange. I've seen it in tests. Their serum retinol, their blood vitamin A, will never start going down until the orange or the yellow has left their skin entirely. So do you see what's happening there? The yellow in their skin, yellow or orangish in their skin, the vitamin A there has to move to the liver before the liver can start lowering their overall vitamin A toxicity. So we want to think of when the body is storing toxicity in the body fat, it's saying the liver can't handle this right now. It's out in the blood. We need to try to contain it, even if we're just holding it here until we can send it back to the liver. So if I had to pick, it has to go to the liver to be detoxed. So that's the end point. So I don't know if you want to say it's better or not. I don't tend to put value statements on that. It doesn't move the process forward. What are we going to do to move the process forward? We're going to fix toxicities. We're going to fix deficiencies. And we don't push the system too hard, because that just makes for more suffering, which is what you're asking me about. You notice the little body fat increase. Okay. I'm telling you how that happened, and I'm telling you how to back yourself out of it. That's what we do. This is not a game. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that. So if you don't like it, back off. That's that. You're saying you have to decide, is the juice worth the squeeze? So, let's see. Oh, Carol. Okay. Carol says she tried increasing your fat intake to gain weight, but got more nauseous and got sudden urges to poop. No diarrhea, but very strong pain and cramps. Thank you for the super chat. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Yeah, your body's not liking that much fat. That's very obvious. So you could have some unknown gallbladder problems. You may have known gallbladder problems. Carol, I don't remember if you've talked about this stuff in the live stream before. But yeah, that either the amount of fat or the type of fat or when you're eating it. Like, I know I'm more sensitive to the amount of fats in foods in the mornings than I am at night. Like, I can handle tons of fat at night if I had to. But in my first meal of the day, my body does not like tons of fat first thing in the day. And that came about over the program. Over the program, I don't like high fat meals in the morning. They don't sit well, so I don't. And if you've noticed that over time, like, it's amazing people's bodies start to tell you over time. I don't think high fat diets are good for people. And over time, my body was like, yeah, no, you can have high fat other times, but just not at breakfast. Okay. And everybody else is like eating eggs and bacon. And I'm just like, good luck with that. At least I got signals. Sure, some internet tough guy will be like, what, he can't eat eggs and bacon in the morning? No, I can. I don't want to, and it doesn't feel good. I'm not an idiot. So, okay, so Carol was saying it was olive oil and nuts. Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, if you're going to eat nuts, folks, remember they are high in oxalates, especially almonds, and they are high in fat, and they are high in copper. So be real careful with nuts. Can you have some? Sure, they are low vitamin A, but they do have all of their own issues. Yeah, I mean, just oil in general. I mean, people, it's so hilarious that people will be like, I'm on a whole foods diet. I'm not saying you're doing this, Carol. They're like, I'm on a whole foods diet. And they're like, and I use protein powders and oil. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but those are processed foods. I don't know. With the fat thing, if you have gallstones, Carol, you may want to... Carol. Sorry. Male. Carol is a guy. Sorry. I apologize. I assumed. And I did just make an ass out of you and me. So I'm sorry about that. So if I'm saying your name, I want to pronounce your name right. So I'm saying Carol, like my mother's name is Carol, Carol, but your name is Karol. So if you pronounce it differently, please help me to pronounce it correctly. I would appreciate that. So with gallstones, you may want to contact Carol, if you're on the Love Your Liver program. You may want to contact Hope. Hope has had some success with an herb called Chanca Piedra. For that, to move that along a little faster. I don't normally recommend herbs on a regular basis, but that is one that may have some help. Okay, yeah. So he's from Poland. Okay. So yeah, you could look into a short-term, dosing of Chanca Piedra to hopefully move some of those things out. The liver and gallbladder flushes that people do out there, you can try it. if you want, it's just an aggressive bile dump diarrhea protocol. So just remember, if you don't eat for a couple days, or you eat very light for a couple days, and you drink a bunch of apple juice or eat a bunch of apples, and then all of a sudden you take a bunch of laxative oil and Epsom salts, you are inducing diarrhea. You're doing a big bile dump from the oil. So you save up the bile for a couple days. You eat very low fat. Save up the bile. Induce the bile dump with a bunch of olive oil. And then you induce diarrhea by drinking Epsom salts or whatever it is, whatever program you look at does. It is an induced bile dump. That's all it is. It's a bile dump into diarrhea. You can do it slowly and more comfortable. I mean, I think I did the liver gallbladder cleanse like maybe twice. And I was just like, this sucks. This is not fun. I'm not doing this again. I would rather do something slowly and mildly day to day than induce this aggressive bile dump diarrhea. If you want to do that, though, you can. But those are things you might look into. Okay. Just 3 gallstones. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's what I got. Generally, the program will help to change your bile so that you won't make them anymore. There was a study on, it was either kidney stones or gallstones in dogs. I think it was kidney stones, but they showed that the dogs with kidney stones had higher vitamin A in their blood than the dogs who didn't. And this was for all types of kidney stones. So generally, when we think of stones in the body, it's stagnation and it's calcification and toxic bile hitting those places. So, okay. Headwood, thank you for the super chat. You're saying, I seem to recall you discussing diminishing returns at Nutrition Detective lactoferrin doses over 2 pills a day. Am I imagining this? No, you're not. If not, could you expand upon it? Yeah, it won't take that much. Trying to get bile going to help pooping / constipation up to 4 a day. Okay. Well, first, Headwood. Has increasing your lactoferrin to that many pills a day helped your pooping? Has it noticeably helped it? Hope you're still here to answer that. And if just remember, if you guys are ever going to do a super chat or whatever and I answer it, please be ready to type in responses in the chat. Okay, it says no, but stool is darker. That is something. Your poop is brown from bilirubin. So that is part of what makes your poop brown. We had people. Okay, so with the bit of research we did on lactoferrin, in terms of like what is the max dose that we know about people getting in a day from natural sources, which would be what? The human breast, right? So we looked that up. We did our own calculations. We saw that at the peak production of milk by a mother, a human baby was getting close to 1,000 milligrams a day of human lactoferrin. Okay. So we had other people, including the great Tyler Ginter, who's still a friend of mine. He's just not around the Love Your Liver program much anymore because he got all better. Like he's just out enjoying life now. He's just kind of like not around the program anymore because he feels so good. He, I think, went up to 5 or 6 a day. And I had told him, I'm like, yeah, I think 2 is kind of enough based on the research I did and how I felt. And he went up to 6 and he was like, yeah, I didn't really, by the time I got up there, I don't remember if it got rough or if he just didn't feel any benefit. I think he just said the diminishing returns. And he was like up at 5 or 6 and he went back down to 2. And he's like, yeah, I think 2 is like the best dose. And so it was multiple things coming together to get to this. Now, if you're not doing the nicotinic acid yet, the flush niacin, that would be, it's a lot generally less expensive than the lactoferrin 2. But those two both, as Kelsey showed, nicotinic acid is a cofactor for lactoferrin in the body. So it makes sense that if you don't have enough nicotinic acid, your body cannot make enough lactoferrin. Vitamin A damages the epithelial cells and the neutrophils in your body that make lactoferrin. So as we become less vitamin A toxic, we will make more lactoferrin. But we got to get there first. And I know lactoferrin's not cheap. Believe me, I got to buy 10 kilos at a time. If not, now they're holding 40 kilos for me. It's not cheap. So I understand, like 4 pills a day is not an inexpensive dose. So I would say, if it's working for you, great. The idea would be, I think over time, you should, if everything's going right, you should be able to reduce your dose because you'll start making bile better. If you're generally pooping, poop is getting darker. If you start noticing you're pooping more often and generally feeling better, that's great. If you were to start having issues with like too much bile dumping, then the lactoferrin is the first thing to back down on because it is the strongest bile dumper, I think, other than nicotinic acid, of all the stuff we use. So it would be the first suspect if you started, let's say you're going along and you're doing great, and all of a sudden something kind of comes up and you're like, wait, I don't feel good. What's going on? And you were still on 4 pills of lactoferrin a day, I would say that's when it's time to ramp it down. I would watch for that. Doesn't mean the lactoferrin's bad for you. It means that as we get people healthier, they make more bile. They dump more bile. You become a bile producing machine. And if you do things, it'd be like if you were driving around a racetrack and you got better at it. So you can go faster around the racetrack and you're taking the turns tighter and everything's moving great as you get better. Well, then all of a sudden, if the whole time, all of a sudden you start mashing on the turbocharger, you start going too fast around the turns and then you start bumping into the walls and not feeling good. And so two of the biggest turbochargers we have, one is nicotinic acid, or flush niacin, and the other is lactoferrin. So when people start feeling like they are dumping too much, then we reduce those. Those are the prime suspects of agitators in terms of stuff you take. But if it's helping for now, go for it. Okay, Laura Lee just said the nicotinic acid has been the catapult in my detox. Amazing. Yeah, somebody else on Twitter the other day, I was talking about the flush niacin sauna, or flush niacin cardio sauna detox, the Gulf War veteran study, and she was like, it was the game changer in her stuff. So yeah, Hope was saying she agrees 2 is a good dose, especially for maintenance. That's what I do. I do 2 a day. I like 2 a day. I still get into, like, if I feel like I'm dumping a lot of bile, space weather or sauna or exercise or whatever, and I feel like I'm dumping too much, I just kind of have gotten to the point. I'm 5.5 years deep. I'm kind of at the point where I'm just like, I'm not going to mess with it. I know this is going to pass, and I just stay on it. But for most people in the earlier phases who don't know themselves and lactoferrin very well yet, that's one of the first things you reduce. You can always go back up, but that's one of the first things to reduce. So right now it's just, if you feel like it's still okay and you're not getting aggravated symptoms, then just stick with it. Okay. Will was saying, Will made my drawing. So I posted a little scribble I had of the liver and the toxic bile loops. I posted that on the Love Your Liver Network the other day, and Will made it into a diagram. So I'll check it out. on the network, and he said he sent it to my DMs on Twitter. So cool. So let's see. Did I miss any super chats? What are we at? 11:44. So we got to Carol's. We got to Headwoods. Thank you all for the super chats. I'm probably going to wrap this up in about 15 minutes. So yeah, just double checking. I'm going back up to the top to come down and try to get this in order. Joe mentioned he's wondering if bubbles in the pee might be retinol binding proteins, perhaps with a payload of retinol. No, well, it is protein. I mean, what causes your pee to have bubbles is surface tension. And the surface tension in your pee comes from the proteins in your pee. I actually, what I think the research has found is that most of the time the retinol this is an interesting thing, the retinol binding protein in the pee. So if you don't, let me back up. Retinol binding protein, a protein very much like an antibody. Well, what does your body make antibodies for? To bind to toxins. So retinol binding protein, I think Grant had a whole article on this on his website. Retinol binding protein is basically almost exactly like an antibody. And I've shown this in an article about how like autoimmunity is toxicity. Antibodies, which is what they measure in autoimmunity, right? Antibodies are proteins the body makes to bind to toxins. So when they measure in your autoimmunity, they measure your antibodies. They're measuring some exposure to toxicity you have. I think it's a lot like virus theory. They're just like, we did this analysis and this is thyroperoxidase antibodies. And I'm like, they're not giving you the whole story. They're not giving any of us the whole story. So anyway, retinol binding protein is not something, it's not like delivering vitamin A to your tissues so your tissues can have vitamin A. No, it's not doing that. It's protecting you from it while it is moving around your bloodstream, because free retinol is extremely toxic. So your body binds something to it to protect you from it while it's floating around your system. And then your body stores it in different areas. Just because your body put it in a tissue, if somebody had mercury fillings and then they go and they find mercury fillings in a bunch of your tissues in your body, are people then going to go, oh, well, obviously mercury is necessary for us to live or we wouldn't have it in our tissues. Oh, obviously vitamin A is necessary for us to live or else we wouldn't find it in breast milk. Do you see the same dumb logic? Just because something is found somewhere doesn't mean it's supposed to be there. And next, it definitely doesn't mean it's good for you. Whenever you think of something that's good for you, or like you go, well, vitamin A is here, so that must mean this. Then use the same logic with like mercury or arsenic. I like when people are like, well, we have cannabinoid receptors. And I go, well, yeah, we have opioid receptors too. Just because you want to smoke weed doesn't mean everybody should be taking morphine too. Like, just because you have a system doesn't mean you should be taking stuff from the outside to mess with it, right? But anyway, back to retinol binding protein. From what I remember in the research, when retinol binding protein is found in the urine, it typically does not have retinol in it, so it's empty. It's a retinol binding protein, but that doesn't mean it has retinol in it. It could have retinol in it. It could have retinol not in it. It's like GHK, the copper binding peptide, right? GHK can be sold to you with copper in it, or it can be sold to you without copper in it, because GHK is a binding protein for copper that protects you from copper. And they find the same results when they give GHK with copper versus when they give GHK without copper. So what is the distinguishing thing? It's the GHK. What does it do? It binds copper, protects you from copper while it's in the system. If people were deficient in GHK and then you give them GHK with copper bound to it, could it cause benefits to happen? Could that be better than less GHK? Sure. But why add copper to the system when the GHK without copper does the same thing? So retinol binding protein in your urine. This is just a theory. I want to emphasize, I am not advocating urine therapy with what I'm about to talk about. But what I am saying is that if there's a bunch of empty retinol binding protein in urine, and you had people, so where do we tend to hear about urine therapy the most as being supposedly beneficial? India is a big one. Is there a lot of malnourishment in India from what I understand? There's quite a bit. Where do we see vitamin A deficiency supposedly show up? In places where there's a lot of malnutrition. When we think of malnutrition, there's two big things that we tend to think of. Lack of protein, like meat, and lack of enough calories. Well, the protein's the big one, right? How do you make retinol binding protein? Zinc and enough protein. So if you don't eat meat and you're malnourished, not enough zinc, not enough protein. Okay. So if people were having trouble making retinol binding protein because they don't have enough zinc and protein in their diet, but they could make some, and it came out in their urine. And when it comes out in their urine, it tends to be empty of retinol. If, this is all just theoretical, if they were drinking their own pee and it had empty retinol binding protein in it, could that help them feel better from what was actually vitamin A toxicity and zinc deficiency and protein deficiency by consuming their own retinol binding protein? As I said, I'm not advocating drinking pee. We in the West generally eat plenty of meat. And then if you're working here with me, you understand the importance of protein and you understand the importance of zinc. We don't have that same problem. So does it make sense that, let's say, urine therapy never really took off in the US? Because we have enough meat. They don't have enough meat. So they're trying to scrounge, in a way, for any retinol binding protein they can get because they can't make it. So that's just a fun little brain experiment there. Let's see. Did we get any other super chats, Joe? None that I saw. Okay, cool. So let's see. Just trying to look and see if there's any good questions I can hit before. Jacob asks, can you go through the program without reducing vitamin A, but only taking the proper supplements and a ton of charcoal? I do have a saying about this. The poison always wins. So as an example, if you're taking in a poison, your body will require more nutrients to process it than it would have otherwise, right? So taking in extra poisons increases your overall nutrient demands. Now, there's not really that many nutrients that I think we need. My list is a lot shorter. And people on the program know that, like, my mineral list of stuff you need is like, it's 6 minerals long. You've been duped into these giant multivitamin, multi-nutrient powders and all this crap. Multivitamins are toxic. I mean, people will say, oh, it's the synthetic vitamins. And I'm like, no, it's the copper in them, and it's the manganese, and it's the vitamin D, and it's the vitamin A, and it's the vitamin E, and it's the vitamin B6. And So ladies, before you ask me, should I take a prenatal? No, you should throw those all in the trash. It's insane that in prenatals, they put vitamin A in prenatals. It's insanity. It means they're trying to poison you. They may not realize it. They're just like doing what everybody else does. The one vitamin that causes birth defects in excess that they're putting it in prenatals. Is that not like, what? So charcoal, wood. So back to this. Put the poison in. Now you're more poisoned. You're giving the poison a chance to settle into your tissues, settle into your liver, and then you're increasing the requirements of nutrition to help detox it and protect you from it. Then we go into, so you're going to need more nutrients to try to counter it. Then we go into, let's say you reduce toxicity. If all somebody did was reduce toxicity, there's less toxins coming into the system. Generally, as we get less toxic, your detox speeds up a bit. Oh, that was the other thing about for the where you keep putting toxins in. Generally, the more toxic you get, the slower your detox goes. Okay, so the opposite is true when you start reducing toxins in. Less toxins coming in means you're not accumulating them as much, and your detox is going to speed up. And over time, it reduces the nutrition you need because you don't have all this stuff running around. So this is why I tell people, like, if there's only one thing you're going to do, it's reduce toxicity coming in. That is the priority over everything else. So if you were to, like, let's say, okay, let me give an example here because this has happened. Maybe this has happened to people here. Copper toxicity and vitamin A toxicity and vitamin D supplements will tend to negatively affect your potassium levels and metabolism. Okay. Vitamin A blocks potassium channels, which means you could have enough potassium there, but it's not getting back into the cells where it's supposed to be. Vitamin D has been shown to increase your potassium losses through your kidneys, vitamin D supplements, and copper depletes potassium. So many of the symptoms that people have on the program are potassium deficiency related to their toxicities. Now, let's say somebody's really toxic, vitamin A, copper, and they're taking vitamin D supplements, and they hear me just say what I did. And they go, oh, well, I don't want to stop my rat poison supplement, and I don't want to stop my vitamin A, and I don't want to stop I love copper, whatever their nonsense they're feeding their heads. And they go, I'm just going to up my potassium. Okay, so they up it some more, and they feel better. Okay. Then they're becoming more toxic over time because they're still putting the toxins in. And then they need more potassium to counter the problem. And over time, this just continues until they're adding more and more potassium. And then not only now are they toxic, but let's say they've added so much potassium that they've gotten to the point of potassium excess symptoms. And now they have toxicity symptoms from potassium because the poison always wins. This is how it works. So if anything, if somebody said, well, I'm going to reduce vitamin A, but I'm not going to go like super hardcore, I'd be like, well, the more you reduce, the better. You have less toxins coming in, and theoretically you're taking some load off your detox system, and hopefully you're eating more things to help you poop out your vitamin A, and you're adding, some minerals. Great. What level do we have to get to improve? We have to get to good enough to improve. What does that mean? It means you need to take in less poisons than your body's getting rid of on a daily basis. It's just math. How do we assess this? There's no way to assess it. Are you getting better? Yeah. Okay. You're doing a pretty good job. You're probably doing enough. Could I get better faster if I put less toxins in? Yeah. You see how this is all should make sense, but people want to have labs and quantification, and if it's measured, it's managed. Yeah, you can do that with anything you're putting in your body. That's it. You're not managing anything on the inside. Like, you don't have control of that. You don't have control of the black box. So, yeah, I mean, would charcoal help you poop out more of your bile? Yes. I mean, okay, so I'll put it this way. Would taking, well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to bring up an example here because I had a friend of mine contact me, and he was really pushing a lot of supplements that we do tend to use in his kids. They live on a farm, and they were still consuming cream and butter and eggs and all this stuff, and the kids were having a little trouble with gaining weight. Those of you who have been here a while understand what I mean when I talk about a detox loop. A detox loop happens when you're putting in poisons and you're trying to detox poisons at the same time. So you're trying to take things to detox, so your tissues are letting poisons come out of them into the blood. Okay, so detox would be, you're trying to detox your tissues, right? So the tissues have to put the toxins into the blood so they can go to the liver. Okay, but you're still putting poisons in, which are then going where? To the liver, to be put into the bile, to be dumped in the bile, which is then some of it's going to leak into your bloodstream. And now you've got toxins coming from the tissues into the blood. You've got toxins coming from the liver into the blood. Now you have effectively increased the toxicity in your blood. Where is the easiest place? And we just talked about this earlier. Where is the easiest place for the body to put the toxicity in the blood? Make new body fat. You seeing this? So I told my buddy, I said, you gotta make a choice. You're either going to stop trying to detox these kids so hard, or you're going to fix their diet. Which, as many of us know, when you're part of a family, fixing the diet can be a real bitch. Because family dynamics it's not just one person. So, yeah, don't put toxicity in and then try to force it out. It doesn't work. The most important thing to do is to reduce the toxicity in over everything else. And that's the Love Your Liver program is not like it's not pushing tons of supplements. Like people do the Love Your Liver program with no supplements and just food. The supplements, I do believe, can help move things along faster if they're done right. People can also push them too hard. Happens all the time. It's a do-it-yourself program. It's not, and people are going to mess it up and not read the instructions of the most common instruction I put in there. Oh, you don't feel good? Do less. And they miss this critical part. And they're coming in the network, and that's why it's here. That's why it's here for stuff like this. And they go, I don't feel good. Here's what I'm doing. And then people are like, yeah, you need to slow the F down. You're doing too much. Like that Paul Rudd line in the what is it? Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Do less. No, you're doing too much. Do less. And they're like, but I want a detox. And you're like, no. You're here complaining because you're pushing detox too fast. How about you do less? And people will resist that. And we're just like, you were warned. I warned people multiple places. How many places in the network do I warn people? If you do too much and you don't feel good, back off. And then what's the first thing they don't want to do? Back off. One of our biggest detractors out there decided to eat beans for a year, and she was like, I felt worse and worse and worse over the year that I ate beans. And I'm like, I told you in the article, don't eat beans if you don't feel good on them. Seriously. Anyway. So yeah. So to answer your question, the too long didn't read version, Jacob. Can one go through the program without reducing vitamin A, but only taking the proper supplements and a ton of charcoal? The technical answer is yes. You and anybody else can do whatever the heck you want to do. I joke sometimes that I'm a gentle tyrant, but I don't care what people do. You can call it whatever you want. If you were saying you were doing the Love Your Liver program and you were not reducing vitamin A, you're not doing the Love Your Liver program, really. I would say that. Because I just told you that lowering toxicity intake is the highest priority of everything. So that would not be what we're doing. And then if you didn't have good results, I'd be like, well, you didn't do like this. The program that I used to be like the vitamin A and glyphosate detox. The whole program used to be named the vitamin A and glyphosate detox. So if you want to know the priority of it all, yes, it's that, but it's not just that. So that's what I got. But yeah, you can do it however you want. We had one guy, there was one gentleman who said he's in the program. He said he was doing it, except he was doing an extremely low fat, like no added fats, vegan diet with tons of brightly colored vegetables. He says he's in the Love Your Liver program. And he's doing like a 0 added fat vegan diet with tons of brightly colored high vitamin A fruits and vegetables. I'm pretty sure I told him, I said, I don't think this is going to end well for multiple reasons. And he was like, no, it's amazing. Everything's fixed and everything's gone. And I'm like, what do I usually, I wait it out. I'm like, okay, we'll wait. I'm not going to try to convince you. You got to learn your lesson. It's like children. You got to let them touch the hot stove so they know that it's hot. Pretty sure it didn't end well. Pretty sure. So, yeah, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to do whatever I want. I want people to do whatever that they want. I am a guide. I am just telling you, here's probably the best ways to get what you want out of health. Now, just because you're on a low vitamin A diet doesn't mean you couldn't, if you want to call it cheating, you can still cheat. I mean, if you were not on a low vitamin A diet and you're trying to do the Love Your Liver program, then I'd basically say you were cheating every day, which is not exactly. If you were in a relationship and you were cheating every day, you wouldn't really want to say you were in a relationship. You know what I mean? So yeah, do what you like. This is not a cult. I don't care what you do. And I mean that in a loving way. I'm not trying to make you do what I want you to do. So that's what I got for today. It's 12:07. I'm going to go. No more super chats. If there are any super chats, somebody say something real quick. Thank you for the super chats. We got Headwood, we got Carol, we got Gianni, wasn't there one more? No, I think that's it. Okay. We are all done. So a quick live stream for today. My goal, everybody, is to do the reflux, the GERD and bile reflux. And for those who want to say acid reflux, my goal is to do that show this coming week. And then the week after that for the live stream, the plans are for that to be the methylene blue show, where we just destroy and expose this pharma cartel poison that they're trying to make trend as a nootropic or nootropic, or however you say that stupid word. Bunch of biohacker garbage. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed it. I will see you all next time. Any links you need from us down there. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and all that stuff. Bye now.